What do you mean by it's not working? Like, is it physically not working? Do we need to resync your email? Or is it that you're not getting the same response rate as you used to? And are you seeing this across the board? And then it turns into a little bit of like a conversation of times are changing. And so the effectiveness of tools is going to change as well. Because if something is absolutely working really, really well today, a lot of recruiters are going to start hearing about it. They're going to start using it. That's going to saturate it.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenly, and welcome back to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we've got a special Tactical Tuesday episode ahead of us, but before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, while other days we cover things like trending topics. Stop by every Tuesday like today for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. Some days we open up for Q&A, and occasionally you get a mic drop episode from Matt where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. Now, as a reminder, if you like the content we share here on the show, make sure that you subscribe for more. All right, today, Tactical Tuesday. If I had $1 for every time I heard a statement, something like, our email tool isn't working and we aren't getting results, and this isn't limited to recruiters, I live in the marketing and sales world as well. I'm hearing the same conversation over there. So today we're going to unpack this a little bit more. Like, what does that really mean? How do we define working? What does success look like? And is that applicable for everyone, or is the answer going to vary by the person who's asking? So we've been seeing and hearing a lot of conversations like this recently. So we decided to bring on not just one, but two of our subject matter experts to dive deep into this one today. So with that, let me welcome two of your favorite Tactical Tuesday co-hosts back to the show, Vivien and Logan. What's up, guys?
Hello, hello.
Hey, Sam.
All right. So, guys, we hear this. We see this. Blank tool isn't working. I'm not getting the results that I used to with this channel, with this medium. Like, let's talk a little bit more about this. So when someone comes to you, let's use Loxo as the example here because we'll pick on ourselves instead of someone else. When you hear someone come to you saying like, hey, Loxo isn't working with my outreach, what comes to mind? So Vivien, I'll start with you on this one.
It starts with, all right, let's figure out, what do you mean by it's not working? Like, is it physically not working? Do we need to resync your email? Or is it that you're not getting the same response rate as you used to? And are you seeing this across the board? And this is where typically it ends up being they're not getting the response rates that they are used to getting. And then it turns into a little bit of like a conversation of times are changing. And so the effectiveness of tools is going to change as well. Because if something is absolutely working really, really well today, a lot of recruiters are going to start hearing about it. They're going to start using it. That's going to saturate it. And that also means that the effectiveness of it is going to go down unless you do something different, stand out in some way to kind of stand out of the noise.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so times are changing. Logan, I know you had some thoughts about this one when we were getting ready for the conversation.
Yeah, on Vivien's note, I think she brings up a good point. And to put it into perspective, we think about 20 years ago when I got my first cell phone, had a Razor, and was able to play Snake on it. And now I can live stream whatever I want, if it's across the world, wherever in the palm of my hand. That's obviously kind of a broader example, but the point is that, things do change and have changed drastically. And, when we look at the type of engagement, that we're doing, think about how many times great opportunity in a subject line or in a message has been sent. People get bored. And they get tired of kind of seeing it. And I think it just becomes an automatic response of, I'm either not going to acknowledge this, or I'm just going to delete it, or potentially in some cases just mark it as spam.
Which we're seeing the rise of. Yeah. So yeah, as change comes about, it's like change comes with tools, change comes with tech, change comes with regulations around how that all comes together, change comes with best practice. So we have all these different variables floating around. And my little bubble that I live in is like B2B marketing, B2B sales world. And I've been seeing this recently, which it absolutely translates to recruiters, is like, I see these blanket statements being made. Email is dead. Cold calling is dead. And these people are so quick to blame the medium or the tool that uses it. You know, Loxo is dead because I can't send an email. Loxo is dead because I can't make a call out of it. But the reality is that like those channels, those tools aren't what's dead. Logan, to your point, like things are changing. So the playbook that you've been using with those, like the great opportunity for you, like that's probably more of the issue. Like if you can still deliver, if you can still, the call still connects, like the tool is working and doing exactly what it should, but you really need to think about what's the playbook, what's the tactic, what are the different experiments, or how you're positioning yourselves within those mediums that needs the long and hard look.
For sure. Part of that is also, like you mentioned, regulations have changed. So a year ago, A2P came into effect, which requires people to give consent before you're allowed to send them text messages. And what that ended up doing is recruiters stopped sending cold text messages like they used to. And that volume didn't go away. It just moved to a different platform, and that happens to be email. Now, if you do this just within your own company or just for yourself, that's already increasing the volume of emails that you're sending to a person as opposed to what it was before. Now you add that on like across your organization, across the whole recruitment industry, across sales and marketing in general. Now that is something that is a channel that has essentially been taken away, then all of a sudden people are getting very saturated and they start to get more selective about the content and the emails that they're engaging with. And that's part of it. And kind of like what Logan was saying, why would somebody engage with your great opportunity email when they have 10 others sitting there? That there's no difference between you and the other 10 recruiters saying the exact same thing. Now, obviously, there are differences. Some recruiters are better than others, but if you're not presenting yourself as different and other, that you're different in some way, that you're better than the other recruiters, that you are able to stand out, if you're not able to do that in the inbox, how would they know that you are indeed different, that you are really amazing to work with? You have to make it blatantly obvious that you are different, that you are able to stand out from the pack. And that starts with what emails are you sending? What's the content? What's the subject line? Because that ultimately then ends up deciding, are candidates actually engaging back with you or not?
Yeah, that's so true. And even the sender name is so important with that too. That like, do they recognize you? Because if they just see someone they don't know, the same subject line as 10 other things, and then like the first, what is it, like 6 to 8 words that show up, like, hi, hope this message finds you well. Like, what do you think's gonna happen? Check, 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 check. Move to trash. Like they don't care who else because they're all the exact same thing.
Yep. And to Vivien's point as well, you know, from our end, we don't make these calls, right? Like we're not putting these regulations in place, and those are the powers that be. And you know, I get it. Like change stinks sometimes, and it can be tough. It's challenging, but I would challenge anybody to also, you know, look at it in a way that, and I think what we're trying to get out in front of is being ahead of the curve here, right? Because the changes are going to happen either way, and you know what we're using a tool like Loxo allows you to get ahead of that, use that targeted approach, and implement these changes so that you will stand out. And be that recruiter that the candidate or contact, whoever it might be, is going to engage with.
Mm-hmm. That's so well put. And it's like we evolve the tool and the platform as best as we can, but the behavior part it's onto the user at the end of the day. And that's exactly why we're having this conversation. How can we, outside of the tool, help our users to best understand like what are the behaviors that they should be using with their outreach practices and everything else to be successful? So yeah, Viv, the what you're talking about with regulation. So yeah, we have A2P that shoots a whole bunch of volume into email. So now there's more volume in email than ever. Then there's those email regulations that are taking that massive amount of volume that's been there and just saying, hey, now we're more selective than ever in terms of spam. You just have this perfect avalanche moment happening where it's just like, well, how do we even get in touch with candidates anymore? How do we even do business development anymore? Do we have to send smoke signals? Do we have to go knock on doors? Like what are the different options there? So, yeah, I guess now that we're getting past like the problem usually isn't the tools. Like if you can successfully send the message, if you can successfully make the call, like the tool is working as it should be. You and I have talked a little bit about before, but just like dad joke emails. There's different things that you can do to stand out and be different. I guess just like, is there anything else that we should be thinking about or posing questions to anyone who's coming up against this and saying like, my tool isn't working, what should I do? Like any other items that we haven't covered yet between the three of us?
I would say a big one is reporting, which is Logan's strong suit. But I'm going to sneak into your area of expertise there for a second. It starts with, all right, let's say you're sending to 100 different candidates. Out of those 100, how many actually got delivered? Meaning, do you have valid contact information? Then whatever you weren't able to like send successfully, make sure that you're able to update that contact information or update it somewhere in your CRM that this is invalid contact information. You should not be using that. You shouldn't be contacting them, because you really can't say I'm sending an email to 100 people, but only 90 actually received it. The other 10 had invalid contact information. That means you're not looking at numbers out of the 100. You're looking at the pool of 90, because if you're not able to reach them at all, they're not counting towards your conversion and response rates. Now, let's say 90 have actually successfully received the email. How many have opened it? This is what tells you, are you standing out in their inbox? Are you even reaching the right audience? Because if you have like a 30 to 50%, ideally above open rate, that means you're getting their attention and they're actually reading and taking a look at your email. Then the next part of that is you want to see how many have actually responded. Part of that is going to be, is your email relevant? Now that you've hooked them in, you got them to open the email, the response rate is going to show you, is your email relevant and do you have a call to action? Because you can give them great information and they might find it really valuable, but if you don't tell them how to engage with you or why they should be engaging with you, that's just going to go all flat. And so you might have a really great open rate. People are genuinely interested, but if you're not telling them, let me know if you're interested. If you're not interested, just let me know. I'll take you off our list. You have to have some kind of call to action that will appeal to the most amount of people. Because if you just limit it to let me know if you're interested, then you're only talking to the people that are genuinely interested. But you also want to talk to the people that are not interested, but might want to have a different conversation with you. You have to extend that invite to them. You have to be super, super obvious. And sometimes it's too obvious where you just forget that. But as a recruiter, think about the different sales emails that you're getting. Like, are any of them relevant? Are the subject lines any goods? Why are you even opening them? If you are, what are you doing with them if you're not opening them, or if they seem very spammy or completely irrelevant? So kind of take a look at your own email behavior to figure out what's happening, but definitely look at the numbers and what the trickle down effect is between how many have actually been sent, how many have been opened, and how many have responded, because that will give you a better sense for how is your content actually performing. And then that's what then you should be looking at in terms of, is it actually working or not? And the really cool thing is that if it's not the tool, it doesn't mean you have to go shopping around for a different tool. You don't have to throw tantrums, for lack of a better way of saying it. You just have to change how you're like communicating. And if you are the only one that needs to change, that is such a quick and easy thing to do. Shout out to our best friend ChatGPT on this podcast. Go talk to ChatGPT. ChatGPT will help you come up with some really great and unique subject lines to get a candidate's attention. It can take a look at your email and say, you know what, it's really not all that engaging. And it can give you some good feedback that hopefully can help. And hopefully that is a little bit helpful in terms of deliverability.
Yeah, and to piggyback off Vivien's point there, because that's really well said, but I think, like we're talking about a piece of a pie in terms of using the tool overall, right? And reporting is definitely, we've talked about it on previous podcasts, having measurable outcomes that define success. And I think with any tool, whether it's the tools that we use here at Loxo internally or Loxo, people that use Loxo, it is a tool at the end of the day. And it's not tools that are going to make your success. They're going to help, but it's going to be the people that are using them. And I think one of the most important things that you can do, implementing all of this, whether it be sourcing, the people that you're reaching out to, screening, whatever that process looks like any good sports team, it's a matter of just implementing a strategy that works and is defined by statistics and data, right? I could send 100 emails out to people and have nobody respond. And yeah, I guess either way, that's probably bad. But if I have 2 people respond when, the next time, like that could be a move towards success, but I'll never know until I start really dialing into like how many people do I need to source, to get this sort of response, and what do I need to do to space out my send outs, or what content do I need to send. So it's strategy, and you have to kind of write up a playbook, and really it's going to change. It's dynamic, just like any business. So that would be my 2 cents there. And there's going to be frustrating things, I think, with any tool and platform you use, and that's across any industry. Um, there's things that annoy me with the music streaming that I use sometimes, right? Like, it happens, but I think what's important is to just acknowledge, okay, like, it's a little bit annoying, but don't let it affect the entirety of your day or your workflow. Um, Find those couple points that are the main focuses and that you can take away as those wins, and then I think in the end, you're going to be in a good spot for success.
Logan, my Spotify doesn't work. It put a song on shuffle that I don't like.
It happens, gosh, like how many times do I get the same song?
Yeah, but one of the things you said there, it highlights something that I've seen people confuse across industry, across roles, where tech tools does not equal your strategy. Like, these are two different things. Like, you should have a strategy and then you use tech to enable your team to be successful with it. But tech itself, going and buying a certain product, that does not mean you're going to be successful in what you want to do. Like, what are you doing with it? What's the purpose of it? And I think that's where sometimes we get conflicted, because you get sold on like, oh, we're going to increase our ROI by 100 million X, or go and send 100 more emails per hour because you're able to do it through these different workflows. Like, that's not replacing the strategy at the end of the day. Like, yeah, you can do things faster and better, but you have to have the right practices, the right playbooks in place if you want to be successful. And those have to tie to your philosophy, your strategy at the end of the day, if you want those to really work well. So, like, Viv, to your point a second ago, you were telling me earlier this week you had a customer that you were working with who had a phenomenal open rate compared to some of the other things they saw, but their reply rate was pretty low, and it came down to a fundamental thing, which I'm not going to steal your thunder. You tell me, what was it?
There was no call to action at the end of the email, which was such a bummer because it had such a great open rate and people really genuinely like were even clicking on stuff. So it showed that there was engagement with it, but there was literally no call to action. It just like ended with the email itself and then just kind regards or best regards, and that's it. But there was no, let me know what you think about this. Like, what are your thoughts? What am I missing here? Are you interested in having a conversation? Was this completely irrelevant? Let me know. There was no call to action, and it was such a bummer because it was such a well-performing email on the open metrics. It was above average, above the other. Like, it performed way better than all the other campaigns I had going.
Yeah. So that's where it's like, you could look and be like, email's not working, this tool isn't working, or is it a fundamental practice that I need to put in place as part of how I execute with this is missing? I didn't have a CTA. So that's the perfect example of like, everything's working as you want, but sometimes, and it's tough because it requires some self-reflection and honest self-reflection, where you have to be willing to accept, I'm great at these things, I could use some work and some other things, or are we missing core things that we know make up for success for us? So that's one of those examples where you learn from it. And I bet their next emails that go out, they're going to build off of that. And they're like, oh, if we follow this structure, we're not going to give away the secrets of what they did, even though you and I have talked about it on this podcast a few times before, but they'll implement that in with it. And I guarantee you that they'll find a lot of success as a result. And it has nothing to do with the tool, but all about the execution of what they're doing with it.
Exactly. I think the big thing that is a challenge to most customers struggling with email deliverability is the shift in thinking from, we're just going to present the information, to now it's moving towards like content creation and content curation. So what I mean by that is, it's not, we can't keep doing the like, I have a great opportunity for you, let me know if you're interested. It has, now that we have so much content and there's really a lot of high quality content across the board. It doesn't matter if you go to podcasts, if you go to YouTube, if you go to social media, TikTok, Instagram, it doesn't matter. There's so much really well done and thought out content that the baseline for what people engage with and what looks professional has changed. And part of that nowadays is a lot of it moves into branding, being like educational, informational, also like giving people tips that can actually help them and things like that. And then as a return, people will actually come back to you. So the shift is moving towards branding and content creation and to being really intentional and strategic with your email as well. And so, like back in the day, people had like a Rolodex. They had huge file cabinets of resumes 20 years ago, and people were freaking out. What do you mean the internet is becoming a thing? What do you mean people can just apply online? That's never going to be okay. All recruiters are going to die. There's no recruiter, like the recruitment industry is just gone. That's not the case, you know, like now recruiters are heavily relying on job boards and they were posting all of these jobs. They got great engagement. Too many recruiters started posting jobs and getting applicants. And so they went away from that and they started personally reaching out to them. Then everybody noticed that that was the move, that was the way to go. So they started doing that while still simultaneously posting. At the same time, candidates started saying, it's really cumbersome to do all of these applications. You already have my info from my last application. Is there an easier way to apply? Cue easy apply or quick apply comes in, and suddenly the quality of candidates that was coming through in job applications just went down the drain. And so recruiters had to adjust to that and say, you know what, we're not going to post anymore. We're going to post for very like niche and specific roles, but not like general ones. And even then, the point is you have to go sourcing and personally reaching out. And now that like everybody's personally reaching out, they were using texting. Can't do that anymore unless you got consent. Email, you still can do that, but Google and Yahoo are looking at you a little bit differently nowadays. And so it's just a change in how the world works. And that's kind of where the adjustment is happening, and we're in the middle of it. So the cool thing about that is whoever figures it out is going to be the one actually dictating what's going to happen next. So cowboy up and get creative.
You can see it as daunting or exciting. Like, yeah, and phone, people are answering their phones less and less than they used to be before. So it's like your big three mechanisms of text, email, phone are harder to get responses from than ever. So who knows? Maybe it's back to fax. Maybe it's back to throwing rocks at windows. We'll find out, but someone's gonna have to get creative. So, Logan, any final parting thoughts?
I would just say on Vivien's last point, there is one constant there, and it's the human engagement part, and the human thought that is going to go into it. And you know, we hear all the time about how AI is going to take over the world, or take over jobs, or take over whatever it is.
Everything.
And you know what? Like maybe that day will come, but it's not coming anytime soon. And those are, again, the way I see it is those are tools to enhance your workflow. Vivien was talking about using GPT. I use it all the time. To help myself. So, you know, no matter what the shift is, it's going to be driven by human engagement, and it's going to be driven by the most important part of recruiting, which is relationship building. And I really think that's going to be the space where, as you know, we progress along, you know, building those close relationships, engaging, not so transactional on everything. And, you know, it is business at a certain point. But, you know, I know those relationships and the folks that are building those are really getting ahead because while, you know, Logan the candidate might not be ready at that certain point in time, if there's good rapport and then another job opens up, you might have your future placement.
That's such a good point. I think we've gone too far in the transactional spectrum, the quantity-based everything. It's back to relationships. It's back to quality. And as much as I know recruiters are going to want to smack me for this, like services are a commodity at the end of the day. People, yes, everyone has their strengths. They excel in certain things, but more or less it's like, okay, if I have 10 different recruiters reaching out to me, say they're even all pitching the same job, they're usually going to go with the recruiter that they like to engage with the best, who seems like they genuinely care about them. And so the more that you can do that, the higher your chance of winning that job, bringing on the candidate. And that's what it's going to come back to your exact point is it's like the relationships. And that's what so many people get into recruitment for. All right. Well, that was a good one. That was a doozy. But I think that this is one of those, I'll call it just like the what is it? Go to the bathroom mirror conversation with yourself. And sometimes you just have to have those tough discussions. But I have a feeling that this will hopefully spur some good thoughts, new behaviors moving forward. So Vivien, Logan, truly appreciate you two superstars joining for this, my favorite Tactical Tuesday co-hosts. And I know that the listeners are absolutely going to take something away from this conversation as well. So as we wrap, Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. If you like this episode, but you're not sure where to go next, we've got a link to a similar one. You can find that in the description of your favorite podcast streaming platform, as well as on our website. Full video episodes are available on YouTube if you want to see our 3 beautiful faces while we talk through this conversation. If you ever have questions, send them to us, podcast@loxo.co. And lastly, if you did enjoy this conversation, please make sure that you leave us a quick rating in your podcast streaming platform. It takes you 3 seconds, but it's going to help other recruiters like you to find us. So, all right, everyone, that's the show. That was a great Tactical Tuesday with Vivien and Logan. Until next time, bye, y'all.